Good evening. I'd like to call the Marlborough School Committee meeting to order at 7:32. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mrs. Murphy, you're on.
Sorry, good evening. I included in my report the updated district enrollment as of August 25th. I checked it this morning as well. It has increased 16 students in the last few days. We have a number of students in pre-registration, so I expect that I will be updating that number on every meeting. I have also included the information on the elementary class size. This is as we begin the year. As you can see, we have some slightly higher class sizes, but they're all pretty much in the same range. And are nothing that really is alarming that we cannot work with.
So far.
In kindergarten, we have a lot of students in pre-registration, even though we do have we're approaching 400 with that class size. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. My main focus of my update today is I wanted to take a few minutes to update you on staffing as we begin school tomorrow. As of today, we have 65 open positions in the district. There are 8 open MEA positions, but 3 of those 8 are in process and should be filled by the end of this week. With another 2 coming forward through the interview committees within days. The other 57 open positions include 16 behavior technicians, 24 paraeducators, 5 cafeteria helpers, 3 custodians, 1 administrative office support, and 8 other positions. Those include hall monitors, LPNs, and district translators, which are all needed. Do you want to ask questions about that now? Or?
Sure. Our hall monitors are only at the high school?
They are. There's 2 of those positions, yes.
And they're both up?
And they're both open as of right now, yes.
Actually, this is going back to the students. Are the 16 additional students pretty much spread across?
They are. I did look, and it's funny, a couple of our schools lost a few students, and a couple of them gained it, but there's no big that everyone's showing up at one school.
Okay. And in terms of the MEA positions, are any of them classroom teachers?
So we did have 2 resignations last week. Those are the 2 positions that have been interviewed for the last 2 days and should be filled very shortly. Most of the positions, we have a couple of nursing positions, 1 at a building and 1 district float. A speech language pathologist is also opened. So at this time last year, I think we had 3 open positions. So we're not that far off where we were last year. The only real area that we have many more open positions than we have had in the past is the paraeducators.
The the building position, is that in a building that only has 1 nursing position?
Yes and no.
The vacant position is at the high school where we have 2 nurses. However, the other nurse is on family medical leave until mid-October. So the nurse from the ECC is covering that now, and we have an LPN supporting her.
Okay, other questions? Mrs. Hennessy?
Thanks. So 16-plus students, I'll start there. How about that? So with the 16-plus students, that's also, we're still doing like the kindergarten registration, which I believe is going to be like, there's one day on Thursday and another the next week or something like that?
We are doing, we have nonstop, we've been doing, but we have a couple of times that people can come in for kindergarten registration over the, they've scheduled it, I think, Thursday and another day. They also, the registration center is opened every single day. We have a number of families that are in the registration process, which these days starts by studying it online through the Family Connections. And then there is the documentation that has to come in and the medical records. So we have a number of families that just have not completed that process yet. So that number most likely will go up across the district.
And I'm not sure how much you know yet about the 16 that have recently registered, but are they falling into the categories of some of our tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, like ELL? I mean, is it kind of hard to know at this point?
I did not compare last week's
Okay.
services to this week's services.
Right.
We'll have every student that speaks another language at home is screened
Right.
before they register so that we're ready to provide services. But we'll have more information on that the next couple of meetings.
Okay. And then relative to the other open positions, with the nursing position being at the high school that's open, I guess I will ask, where are we standing then as far as the athletic trainer position? Because, you know, I know that was open as well.
It's been filled.
It has been filled.
Yes.
So we do have,
Yes.
I'm just, because of so much being underway already.
Yep.
Okay. And with this speech pathologist that you were talking about, I'm assuming that's
Chronic
something
issue.
where we can, you know, can we hire with outside services? Because I think that's something which often we do need to do from time to time, right?
Yes, we've already started reaching out to our contracted, to actually, oh my God, sorry, to agencies to see if they have any candidates for us to fill that position.
Okay.
Which would also be true for our behavior techs. We will have to, I know that Assistant Superintendent O'Brien has already started contracting for some of those services, and I believe it was 50% of the open positions are currently being filled by that
Contract.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mrs. Ryan?
I just have a question about, I see some of these classroom sizes are like 23. At what point do we start to look at opening up another section? Like if we start getting too much enrollment in the first couple of weeks of school, would we open up a 5th section of first grade at Kane if it was getting too many first graders there? Or like when does it start getting to be concerning?
We always look at that. I think we'd have to find a funding source for that, and space. Because the reality is that every other school is out of space. And our next step across the district moving forward is going to have to be, most likely, an increase in class size. And we've been trying to avoid that. But Kane is the one school that might have one classroom. But we'd also have to keep an eye on the kindergarten numbers as well, because we have some smaller kindergarten class sizes, so it could be an adjustment.
Anything, Mr. Caruso? Okay.
Finally, I did want to say that attached to my report is a copy of the updated pre-K to 8 student handbook for your review. At the last school committee meeting, Mr. I'm going to pronounce it wrong, and I've been doing it right for weeks. Macchioli requested an update to the bullying information in the handbook. We did complete that update. We have also included recently updated policies in the handbook. I plan on including links to the new policies to parents as they are approved during my monthly parent update. Each pre-K through 8 school will also provide families with a building-specific family handbook. So each school will have 2 handbooks, one that includes mainly the policies and the expectations for behavior and the due process, and the other one will be building-specific information for every family. Thank you. Yep.
Mrs. Hennessy.
I just wanted to thank the Macchioli. See, I just did it. I just followed your lead. I'm so sorry. So the Macchioli family on bringing that forward to us, because I feel like as far as with the handbook at the younger grades, that was not necessarily something that I think we thought it was across the board, and so it was nice to have that us alerted so that could be changed. So I'm glad that that's making a change so that we can have that updated for the beginning of the school year. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Mr. Caruso.
Well, I've got some more of a sort of cleaning up kind of thing. I'm looking at the table of contents. First of all, we've been trying to get rid of the double policy words and everything, so perhaps we could get rid of the policy and then saying policy at the end of the policy, just clearing it up if we've been doing anything else. Also, I've noticed that a lot of places we have the specific policy number, and other places we basically got the policy in the handbook, but we don't refer to the number in the section. We refer to it somewhere at the bottom of the, and is there a reason why that they aren't all referred to in the sections would be easier to find, the policy itself?
Yeah, I think there's a combination of, at some points, we link directly to the policy in there where we think that the full policy might be helpful. A couple of times I think the general information was combined from more than one policy, so that is where you see the reference in the handbook to multiple policies. Is that the way we were doing it? Yeah.
In looking at the former handbook, it seemed that the policy was in the title if we were doing including the full entire policy. However, if it was a redacted policy in only bits and pieces of it, it was referenced within the body of the content versus off to the side.
Well, I'll admit I didn't read through every single one of them, but I did make several comparisons, and in many cases there was verbatim policy, but it didn't say policy until the very end, and it referred to the policy. So, you know, in a couple of places, like for instance, health and wellness, there were 2 separate policies that were referenced. I'm just thinking for ease of finding things, if you're looking at this and you're used to seeing the word policy on the left, when you're looking for policy referral, you may not go all the way to the bottom of the actual policy to notice that it's a policy. So I'm just trying to make sure that when we read things, parents read things, they know what's policy, what's procedure, because we've had a few instances where that's been an issue. So,
Would you suggest that the policies be reflected in the table of contents or on each page in each section?
well, I think putting them in the table of contents is probably the better place for them. I just think where it's easier, if you're already starting to list policies, if you stop listing policies, then they're searching for everything. If you have them in, they can start looking for other policies, they'll be able to find them fairly quickly. Okay. So I think it's better to have everyone on the left side of that table, as opposed to not, even if you don't absolutely refer to everything in the policy. If you're substantially quoting the policy, to me, it just seems like you should have the policy number there, as opposed to having to look down through, especially since we're putting ourselves after the general laws. When they put the policy number, because most people, when they see the MGL, they just don't read any of that after that, because they don't want to worry about that stuff. But that was my only thing I was looking at, trying to figure out what was policy and what wasn't. I noticed several of them were basically policy verbatim.
Sorry.
But just so
This is
I'm
right.
clear, I think you said that the reason the policy wasn't stated was because you weren't posting the entire policy in the handbook. So I think we need to be careful, if you're going to change it all to policy, then I think you need to post the entire policy. But if you're not putting the entire policy, I don't think you should be putting, like, pretending that it's the policy if it's not the full policy that's written in the handbook.
I think we could probably reference and just put all the links to any one that comes under, so that if people want to reference the whole policy, it's always there.
Yeah, I just don't want
Yeah.
people thinking that that's the whole policy and then wondering, well, why does this not match what's on the
Yeah.
website as the full policy?
Absolutely.
Just so that there's no confusion.
All right, thank you.
Anything else? We don't vote on handbooks, so
You vote on the high school, which you did and you approved, but the elementary and middle is for information.
Yep.
And so, that concludes my report.
So how does this get distributed to families?
So it's posted on the website, and then the elementary principals are just sending it out as well, yes.
Electronically or?
Mainly electronically, because it's a lot of pages, and then you have the handbooks, yeah. Yeah. And it is, the old one has been translated, so the update is happening right now.
In Spanish and Portuguese.
And yes.
Mrs. Hennessy.
And if I recall correctly, if somebody needed to see something not online, there's a printed copy that would at least be available in each of the building offices so that somebody could receive if need be.
Or they could reach out to either a elementary classroom teacher or a homeroom teacher at secondary level, or at the high school, one of their teachers, and we can get a printed copy to whoever
Sounds
needs
good.
one.
Great, thank you so much.
Good? Okay, thank you. Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This is tonight's update from Finance and Operations. Food services going into the new school year. As always, I want to remind families that we have universal meals in Marlborough, and everyone participating is beneficial to the food service program. Every meal that we serve is equal to dollars in the account for that specific school's food services program. Also, further update, since our last meeting, we have finalized our CEP status with the USDA for the next 4 years through FY26. Our final reimbursement percentage was 95.7%.
Wow.
Up from 78.9% prior. So that was a big win for the district to secure that percentage for the next 4 years. Student furniture, when students arrive in their classrooms tomorrow, they will be greeted by brand new desks and chairs, pre-K through 12. This project was 1 year in the making and was thankfully seamlessly executed this summer thanks to Andy White, Graciela Kelly, all of our custodians, as well as the DPW's facility staff. Also want to shout out the church volunteers who partner with us to take away the used furniture. That was a great partnership, and they used volunteers Saturdays, Sundays, and everything left the buildings very successfully. So I'm grateful for their work as well. And I hope when the students show up tomorrow that they get to enjoy the new furniture. The VS chairs are very comfortable. Before I dive into transportation, and I have a few remarks in regards to transportation, I forgot to include on this report some news about the Richard Statement of Interest that we submitted to the MSBA this spring. We have heard from the MSBA, and they have invited us to move to the next step in the process, which is conducting a senior study at the site. So the MSBA is actually coming to Marlborough on September 1st. They'll be visiting the Richard School, and they will be conducting what they call a senior study, which is essentially going over our SOI live in person at the building. to evaluate whether or not we're going to the next step after that. Transportation. I reserved a space here because when I wrote this report on Thursday, things were, and unfortunately things remain, fluid in transportation. In front of the committee tonight is the matrix that I have printed, but before we get there, I just wanted to provide some context and background. As we all know, if you're watching the news, there is still a national shortage of CDL drivers, and other districts in Massachusetts are struggling to run all of their routes for this next school year. Myself and Steve Phelan have been meeting weekly with NRT since August of 2021. And in May of 2022, we shifted those meetings to focus on recruitment and retention of drivers. Since then, NRT implemented the following initiatives. The CDL training, which is 60 hours of training, went from unpaid to paid. This is something that we piloted as a district last year. It was successful, so they implemented on their own. They have also implemented a $5,000 sign-on bonus for new CDL hires. They have implemented an increase of $7 million in their payroll sheet through their businesses in Massachusetts. NRT is owned by a company called Beacon Mobility. They have various other companies in Massachusetts that do transportation, and within those companies, they have increased their payroll by the tune of $7 million. They have initiated some marketing opportunities right here in Marlborough, including the movie night that we hosted in July. That was an NRT idea to do some marketing and recruitment. They have hosted regional job fairs, large ones in Worcester and in Framingham, to attract drivers to our contract. Despite these efforts, we have been unable to secure enough drivers to service the contract starting tomorrow, making matters more challenging. Over the last 14 days, 2 weeks, we lost 4 drivers. So this leaves us going into tomorrow morning with 8 routes without a permanent driver. We have 33 routes. That's 25%. And I've given you today a matrix that shows you each individual route and then the individual runs within those routes. The left side of that matrix, to the left of the green line, is our morning runs, and then to the right side is our afternoon runs. We have 132 bus runs within those 33 routes. 102 of those runs are fully covered and should perform tomorrow with no issues. The yellow highlighted routes within that matrix, there are 21 of them, will be completed by a driver from a nearby district. So not a permanent Marlborough driver, but perhaps a AMSA or Aspa Valley driver who's coming over and helping us, and there will be minimum to no impact to the families on those 21 runs. In light orange, we have students that are leaving the afternoon from the elementary school 20 to 30 minutes after the bell. And in deep orange or red, I was trying to avoid using red, but I should have used red. We have 4 runs in the afternoon that we cannot service tomorrow. I spent most of my day yesterday reaching out to those families and informing them that there will be a late run option available for them. The school will be staffed to support those students staying late, and there will be snacks provided through the food service program for those students. At this point, I would say that these families should plan that this will be in place through September, although we are hoping to eliminate this issue as fast as possible. Again, while this is not at all pretty, I do want to thank Steve Phelan for coming up with this matrix and going through every single possible scenario to minimize the pain for the Marlborough families. While we are 25% short on our bus drivers, we're able to run 93% of our runs tomorrow without interruption. However, I want to recognize that the 7% of families that are impacted are being significantly impacted, and we are working hard to stop the pain as soon as possible. The solution is more drivers. If anybody knows anyone who's willing to drive, we want to talk to them. We want to offer them the $5,000 sign-on bonus. We want to pay them for the 60-hour training and get them behind the wheel as soon as possible. I was given, I'm on speed dial with senior vice presidents at NRT. We talk often. We spoke this afternoon. The recruitment pipeline for Marlborough looks like the following. 1 driver passed the test today. That's good news. Hopefully that driver will be behind the wheel on Monday and will take the pressure off some of the pain on this matrix. Another driver is already done training and scheduled to test on September 13th. One point of frustration with this process is that after your 60-hour training, you're uploaded into the state database to be tested, and it is sometimes taking 2 to 3 weeks for the test to be scheduled. So this driver is complete, it's done, they're ready to go, but they are not testing until September 13th. We have 2 drivers who have been hired, and we've performed the background check, and they will start the training on September 1st. They're getting their permit, and then we'll start the 60-hour training on September 1st. There are 8 other drivers, there are CDL drivers that have accepted job offers. NRT needs to conduct their initial background check, and then they need to get their CDL permit, and then start with the 60-hour training. There is a light, but these 8 drivers, I would say, best case scenario, they're on the road in 6 weeks.
And all 8 of them are designated to Marlborough, not to other districts that NRT services?
They are at a minimum designated to the Hudson office. Every time a seat in the Hudson office, there are 5 contracts serviced out of Hudson. We're not the only contract experiencing pain out of Hudson. Every seat in Hudson that gets filled is pressure off of the system that helps us. But we are priority. So the driver that passed today, the driver that's testing on the 13th, and the 2 drivers getting their permits and starting training on September 1st, those are Marlborough drivers. And again, 4 drivers would significantly impact this matrix in a positive way. I wish I had better news. Steve and I, as well as our partners at NRT, who continue working hard every day to try and alleviate as much of this as possible. We have pushed for drivers from other regions to be sent to Marlborough. At this point, unfortunately, there are just no spare drivers anywhere else to be sent to Marlborough. Happy to answer any questions.
Mrs. Hennessy.
So let's focus on those 4 that have no service in the afternoon. Each of them would have an opportunity of getting a late bus, correct?
The next available service, unfortunately, is at 4 p.m., an hour and a half after the bell.
Okay.
The only way to avoid that would be to impact our younger elementary children, which we are
Right,
trying
because
to
this isn't,
prioritize.
right, it's at different tiers.
Right.
Okay. Approximately how many kids are we impacting on those buses, which I know also our afternoon runs, especially like at the high school, are normally less?
On those 4 routes, there are roughly 130 children. I would say
In total.
roughly 50% of those students live at 1.5 miles or shorter from the school. So potentially walking is a feasible option for them if waiting for the bus at 4 p.m. is not ideal.
And forgive me, because you've probably thought of this, but I have to ask some of these questions. Is it possible for some of these students to potentially through a guardian or a parent contacting you, could they ride home on a different bus to go to a neighbor's house or something like that?
Potentially, yes, if they reach out to us, because we do have capacity issues in some of the other buses.
That's why I'm saying,
yes.
but that might be an option
Yes.
to at least get them home to a friend's home or something like that. So
Family member
a
that was-
different family member, at least for the time being.
Absolutely.
I'm just,
Absolutely.
I'm a problem solver person. I'm like looking for options. Because I'm just wondering, like, such as we have the STEM van, is it possible that we can designate someone to utilize, say, the STEM van or some of the smaller vans that can be driven by someone else not with a CDL to help ease the pain? I've got to ask.
We don't have drivers
For
currently.
for the STEM thing.
Correct.
I'm ready. Sign me up. And relative to the comment of the $7 million increase in pay rate, but that's across, that's not here. I mean, that's across
No,
NRT.
our entire contract sourced $2.2 million in revenue for them.
Right.
Right. So they have other contracts in which they're servicing throughout the district, and Beacon Mobility owns various businesses in Massachusetts.
Understandable. So are they promising that they will better our hourly rates to be competitive with our direct neighbors so that we are not finding ourselves in a hole?
It's something that we continue pushing them on. There have been increases in the hourly wages here for Marlborough drivers, and it's something they have committed to working with us on. The elephant in the room is that to meet what other districts are paying, they will likely run at a significant loss managing our contract.
Well, right now, we're kind of at a loss anyway, because I'm assuming that they're not going to get paid for services that they're not completing, right?
We're not paying for anything that we're not running.
Right,
Correct.
so they're not meeting their contract at this point, so, but how long are we under this contract with them?
Through
till?
FY '25.
FY '25. Okay.
And I'm sure this is another obvious question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are we going to be closely monitoring how full our buses are? And if there are some routes that aren't as full, or is there the potential of maybe rerouting some buses so that maybe we can make more seats for others who don't have?
Once we became aware of this issue, and part of the reason why the matrix itself and the notification to parents did not go out until yesterday, is because we were trying desperately to fit in as many kids as we could into these routes. Absolutely, we will massage these routes more and more in order for us to fit additional kids into these routes. The reality is, during our COVID response, we significantly changed our routing needs. We eliminated last year the need for 6 buses from the contract. So there's only so much more that we can utilize these assets without potentially turning a 35-minute route into an hour route, which then generates other issues for us and other complaints. I say we, but really Steve Failing has been looking at these routes very closely for the better part of a year, trying to make sure that we can maximize our assets, knowing that we would come into this year with stress on how many drivers we could attain. We were expecting an issue 2 weeks ago, before we lost those 4 drivers. This was a significantly better matrix with a significantly lower impact. Unfortunately, losing those drivers last minute was painful.
And we own the software. I remember we purchased the software.
Yes, we
to
do
be
our
able
own
to
routes.
do the routing.
Absolutely. We perform our own routing, yes.
I think off the record, you had mentioned to me where a couple of the drivers had gone. Did all of them go to that same place?
Honestly,
Do we know?
there are various reasons why we lose drivers without going into private personnel matters, but there are personal family reasons.
Okay.
You know, sometimes we are forced to reject drivers for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And yes, you know, the city of Worcester, having their own busing now, did purge a couple of our drivers recently. So
That's how they use their federal funds,
Right.
is to own their own buses, and they have probably nice new buses. Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, just one more. So bus number 19, I guess it is, on the morning. What are they gonna do?
So bus 19 in the AM, there are 10 students, 10 individualized stops that unfortunately we had to cut from that route in order to get bus 19 to school at all. So there are, I believe there are 50 kids or 45 kids on that route, 35 of which are on one stop. And then the additional 10 were on individualized stops. We could secure a bus that was just big enough for the large stop, but not for all students. All of this bothers me. Bus 19 in the morning is what bothers me the most. The driver that passed today, hopefully, will be taking over that route on Monday.
Right, but we've got 10 students that
Tuesday.
have high probability then
On
of,
Tuesday, thank you.
what?
Monday's
Yeah,
a
on
holiday.
Tuesday, yeah, exactly. But we have 10 students that have high probability then of maybe not even getting to school.
So the thought is that the families would be able to assist us in driving their kids to school on Monday. That was part of my request when I emailed them. I have had some good feedback from these families that received my notification yesterday, and some of which they said they would be driving, and others were actually able to find another bus stop close enough that they could get on and get to school.
Okay.
And we checked the capacity for those buses and felt that it was appropriate for them to do that.
They were,
Okay, so they've at least been notified, not only with drive your child to school, but here are bus stops.
To be fair, these families identified the other
They
stops
found it
themselves that was manageable for their students.
Well, and thank goodness that they have and that they've been resourceful, because, you know, that's tough at the beginning of a school year. So,
in terms of the late pickup or take home at Wickham in particular, so will the students stay in their classrooms? Will they all go to the CAF? Where are they gonna go?
Students will meet in the cafeteria. We did something similar last year. Last year, we were able to secure a bus for 3:30 pickup. So they'll stay in the cafeteria, they'll be given a snack, there'll be staff there available.
So they could do homework and there'd be staff there to supervise and assist?
Correct.
Okay. What? Homework? Yes, homework.
Doug, thank you. Not great information.
Super stressful for
It
you
is.
and Steve, I
It is.
know.
You're not sleeping much
Yeah,
either, so.
Yeah, I feel for you. I know it's, thank you for the information.
Thank you.
And,
Wish I could drive a bus.
Me too.
I can.
oh, yeah,
I can.
Mr. Caruso has the appropriate licensure. I think,
How soon can we sign him up?
I've been working on Mr. Caruso all week.
I have to go through a few legal hurdles to do it, but I've done it in the past.
How can we help you?
Change his name.
No, I just have to write a little letter to the Ethics Commission.
oh, and the CEP status. Thank you for all of your hard work on that. I know it's been a lot you've done, and 95.7% is like,
Yes, that'll be a
Crazy.
big win for the district, and we're looking to, again, with increased participation, we'll be able to reinvest all of those funds right into the program.
it's awesome.
Yeah, I piggyback on saying thank you. That's
Thank
been a
you.
lot of hard work, but I'd also say thank you to a lot of the administrators in the buildings, because I'm sure through the building administration and then the teachers being able to continue to push out the information has probably helped to make that impact happen. So
Yes.
it's team effort, total team
Absolutely.
effort.
Mike Olisser in the data office looked at that information very closely for days, and every single student that could count was counted towards this.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Action items. Policy removal, Mrs. Hennessy.
Thank you very much. So I appreciate everyone's indulgence as we.
Oh, I lied. We didn't do public participation. I apologize. I'm looking at two different things and not keeping up with my agenda.
Okay.
Hold that thought.
I'll hold that thought.
Public participation. Please make sure your green light is on and state your name and address for the record, please.
Kelly Macchioli, 58 Ridge Road, Marlborough. Good evening. My name is Kelly Macchioli. I'm a city resident. As Kelly Rayano, I was a proud graduate of Marlborough High School in 1999. Today, I'm the mother of 2 current and 1 now former Jarrick Elementary School students. As you are all well aware, my husband and I have been here numerous times since May to discuss the issue of bullying. This is an issue our family sadly has had first-hand experience with. My husband addressed the committee last week as you had the first reading on the bullying prevention policy. And we understand the district administration has acted on 2 suggestions we made last week. We believe adding the definitions of target and aggressor, as well as information on the state's problem resolution system to the pre-K through 8 student handbooks are common sense steps. Tonight, I want to remind the committee of the changes we are suggesting for the bullying policy. These are also common sense steps. First, we urge the committee to spell out what "in conjunction with the school committee" means in the prevention and intervention plan section. In conjunction may mean one thing to this group of school committee members, but may mean something totally different to another group of members sitting here in 2 years. We suggest the school committee add language requiring that the school committee to vote to approve or deny the plan. Second, we respectfully ask that the policy contain a requirement that the biennial review process include a defined method of accepting public comment. This may be at a properly posted school committee meeting, through the ability to provide written comment, or some other mechanism identified by the committee. We would also encourage the committee to require that the review include parents, staff, and outside professionals, including mental health and law enforcement. We believe having a wide variety of community members participate would strengthen the process and protections of students. As Kevin said last week, this is exactly why the legislature required the original plans to be drafted with the input of teachers, community representatives, parents, law enforcement, and others included. Third, add a requirement to the policy that parents and guardians of targets and potential targets be notified of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's problem resolution system, regardless of the results of the bullying investigations. As we have noted more than once, the state's model bullying prevention plan includes the language. However, Marlborough's 2022 bullying prevention and intervention plan only requires parents and guardians to be made aware if bullying has been found. If it's important enough to be included in the state's model plan, it should be important enough for Marlborough to add for its students. We look forward to hearing a robust public discussion on the policy and our family's suggestions. That's the speech. I will say this has been a going through this process has been a nightmare. At every turn, we have been told that we don't know what we're talking about. Members of this committee told us not to bother this committee with this topic. That's unacceptable. In this day and age, with what is going on in the world, in our schools, to hear that you can't be bothered I don't have a word for it. I would like to thank Mrs. Murphy and Mr. Caruso. They've both reached out, they've both worked with us through everything our son has been through at school. We've shared our story with all of you, not because we expected you to help him, but because we have a firsthand experience, and our experience shows the failures of this system and the plan that has been in place for years. And we've hit a lot of resistance, and that's unacceptable. I've heard from other committee members, oh, well, they're here, that's great. Most people don't bother to show up. After I spoke here in May, I had 10 messages from parents, some from parents I know and some from parents I haven't met. They saw this, they were watching the committee meeting. And after my experience, they're not showing up because nothing's getting done. Thank you. We made some steps here. I've heard from teachers that say that we were in a bullying and prevention seminar for a day, and that's great. But don't stop there. Go spend some time in the elementary schools. Talk to some of the elementary school students. See what the classrooms are like. And then hold your teachers and your administrators accountable for upholding what you guys are putting into place. That's great. Seminar is great. Training is great. But it doesn't mean anything if there's no backup, if there's no follow through, if nobody's watching what's happening as it goes. I will say my son's teachers have been amazing. Nothing short of heroic, keeping him safe and separate. But there's been a big failure once it gets handed up to the administration at Jarrick School. I can't speak for the other schools, but I know we're not the only family that has had an issue like this. We might be the only one here talking to you now, but we're not the only family in the district. And as I said in my first speech here, I grew up here, we both speak English, and he has 2 involved parents. Not every student in the district can say that. A lot of students in the district can't say that. Where does that leave them? We're not asking you to fix his situation. We're asking you to fix it for everybody that comes behind him. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it's your turn, Mrs. Hennessy.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Oh.
No other public.
You're good.
You're all good. Okay.
Thanks.
Great, thank you. So tonight, as we have been preparing for some of the different reads at our last meeting, and also some of these have been on the July 12th meeting as well. So the first policy I'd like to move forward, which would be really for a removal, which is policy 8.110, Student Advisory Committee. After we had reviewed a number of the different policies, we realized that policy 2.223 actually really does speak to the Student Advisory Committee. And it speaks to it within this section that is about all of the governance areas and that role. So it seemed like a duplication to have basically the same policy in 2 different areas. So it seemed to be a smart move to narrow it down, and we were looking at keeping it within the governance as opposed to specifically within only the student section, just so everyone knows, okay? So I'd like to make a motion for the removal of policy 8.110.
Motion made and seconded to remove policy 8.110. Any discussion?
Can I just ask a quick question? Does the other policy that you reference, 2.223, specify the same information about the dates or the months that we'll be meeting?
No.
So through the chair, to Ms. Ryan's question, that actually is something that was being removed to have the specific dates, as we had discussed with the student representative that had brought that forward. It seemed like having the specific months was actually becoming more of a labor to stick to those months, as opposed to acknowledging that we needed their involvement. So that's been removed from 2.223.
Right, so to review, for this year, the students requested that the Mass General Law says that they have to come every other month. And we were doing it on a certain schedule. The group of students felt that that schedule wasn't working for them, requested for this year that we change the months, and we have done that, and we'll review, I guess, at the end of the year and see how it goes. So by taking it out of the policy, the specific months, it gives us the flexibility to work with the students around what works best for them.
And still following Mass General Law would allow for the every other month. It just was not necessarily specific to a certain specific month.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. So, coming up, we have a number of different policies where we are looking for approval. There were a number of amendments, revisions, some of them spelling that I had sent to Ms. Sibilio, and I believe that they are in here on a number of different places. So let's, if possible, just take it on a one-by-one basis, if possible. So I'd like to make a motion to approve policy 1.010, which is the MPS mission, belief, vision policy.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Discussion. Any discussion? This particular one we worked on as a full committee in a workshop meeting that we had this summer, so we're all on board. No further discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Next policy would be policy number 1.200. So I'd make a motion to approve the policy around constitutionally protected religious expression / prayer.
Motion made and seconded to approve policy 1.200. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. Next policy would be policy number 1.300, bullying prevention. So I'd like to make a motion to approve amended policy number 1.300 for bullying prevention.
Motion made and seconded to approve. Discussion. Mr. Caruso.
Now, this is, just to be clear, we're just, I'm sorry, outside my voice went. We are just approving this policy. This is not necessarily approving the bullying prevention procedures that are part of the handbook that this is just this specific policy with this specific wording tonight.
Yes, so what we're voting on right now would be the policy 1.300, which is separate from the bullying plan.
Right.
And would be separate from specifics within the handbooks. The handbook, which was brought before us earlier this evening, was the elementary, which is that, well, pre-K through 8, so it's the handbook, that one handbook, to best align with having consistent language relative to target and aggressor. that would meet not only within that handbook, but as well with the high school handbook. But that is a separate issue. That's not relative to this one.
Because I think I'd spoken to you that there was a I don't want to say a discrepancy, but there is a statement in the DESE model bullying policy that does kind of coincide. One of the points that's brought up by Macchioli's, which it says that you must do a certain thing a certain way, and our policy doesn't quite say that. And this is not the place we'd be fixing that. I assume we'd be able to address that.
Policy-wise, we could make additional amendments or changes from a policy standpoint if that's something that you'd like to entertain, making an amendment here. But that's separate from the bullying plan.
But this would be something that's stated in the bullying plan, but not in the policy, so that's not appropriate here. I'm just trying to know where and when that would come up if I wanted to bring that.
I'm sorry, maybe I'm misunderstanding. So from a,
The plan is here and the policy's here.
right,
We're voting on this, but does that include this, or is that a separate?
this execution relative to 1.300 is strictly on the policy. Are you looking for language to be within this policy that would speak towards the plan?
Will it be more appropriate in the plan itself, because it's wording that's in the plan now that's somewhat differs from what the state DESE model policy has. So I'm just trying to figure out, which I just spent a little more time with the policy at the state level and realized that some of the points that were made earlier by the Macchioli's, one of them is a very valid point in terms of what's written in that prevention, bullying prevention, I don't call it policy, it's not policy.
Plan.
Plan, thank you, that word. So I'm just trying to know when and if that was fixable at some point, at least that portion of it.
Or, I mean, I could say.
So if you'd like to make a suggestion for us to come back with the plan at the next meeting, and I think there was some specific language that you wanted to bring forward,
Yeah.
that
I mean, I don't,
you want to address that at this time.
I don't want to delay, putting this handbook out because we know a school's starting, so I just want to.
I don't think it's a matter of delaying the handbook, because the handbook was a separate issue. So the handbook, we've already discussed tonight, and so that would already be moving forward separate from the policy. I think also what we had tried to do was when the administration was having meetings with all administration across the district last week, they did make them aware of the policy that was on the table, because we wanted to make sure that everyone was as up-to-date and privy to current information. Obviously, it wasn't accepted yet, and everyone was made aware of that. I find no reason that we could not leave this potentially on the table for, until the next meeting, should you like to bring forward potential language for us to review. What I would request is if you wanted to pull together some language and provide that to the superintendent so that Ms. Sibilio could make sure that it comes out to all of us ahead of time, that probably would be a helpful way to work through that, if possible. Okay?
I don't want to hold anything up, but I just want that one issue can be addressed fairly easily, I think, and I just wanted to have the opportunity to do it.
I mean, this is not time sensitive
Right.
What's going out to families is in the handbooks. If we make some tweaks to the policy in the next couple of weeks, is that disruptive to the process?
So we have spent the last couple of weeks making sure that every administrator in the district, and then today at the buildings, each building knows what the process is, formal process for reporting, identifying, and moving forward. That's not going to change regardless of what this is. It's associated with both the bullying plan and this policy, but if language has to be, because I think part of the issue is that Mr. Caruso also wanted us to make sure that we went back and looked at a few places where specific language, we should clarify some language to make sure that we are aligned throughout the document with the plan too. And Ms. O'Brien?
So last week at the leadership retreat, we did have Attorney Michael Joyce come and do a full day training with, on legal topics. A good half day was spent on bullying and the laws and regulations around that. We had reviewed the investigation process, reviewed 2 forms that that administrators would use as far as that were developed for the investigation and then for the outcome. And as part of that training, notification of the PR, specifically around PRS, which is one of the concerns that has been raised. In the plan, it is regardless of the outcome that parents are notified. The plan itself, that paragraph that's referenced, does not specify that it's only in the event that the allegation is determined to be bullying. It is meant to be for all instances. So to clarify and make clear, we are editing the bullying plan to just include that regardless of the outcome at the end of that sentence. Also, at the same time, I had picked up two places where instead of victim, it was instead of target, it was victim. So I had cleaned that up as well. I have made those revisions. They're ready to go. I put updated August 2022 at the bottom of that, and that will replace the original one that is up there now and be distributed to everybody to make sure that that's clear. That is in line with the trainings that we had last week.
So at this point, what I'd request is that actually we table the bullying policy until the next meeting. What I would request would be, Mr. Caruso, if you could provide some potential of amended language you'd like to have considered so that that could be sent out to everyone. And that I would also ask for the assistant superintendent, if you could then provide the bullying plan to us with the revisions that have been made, so that way we would have time for a formal review of that in conjunction with the policy and be able to hopefully then at the next meeting be able to bring that all forward. Okay. I would suggest that that might be the best way of moving forward at this point.
Okay, and I would actually like to entertain some clarity as was requested regarding the terminology around conjunction with the school committee in terms of the review.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that could be spelled out a little bit more clearly. And I'm happy to.
Yeah, and that would be fine too. So again, what I would suggest.
Do you have a policy meeting scheduled between now and then?
No, I mean, we don't have something set. We were looking for new dates, so I can put something out and see. I think what we were trying to do was to not put something to coincide with the beginning of school. Only because these guys all have.
And I don't know that it's necessary to convene a whole meeting around this. I mean, if you want to work on your language and I can work with you on this, and then we can kind of.
That would be helpful, because I think at this point, we all obviously want to get to the right point as a full committee, right? So I would say, as long as obviously we're following the appropriate of not going against open meeting law, and then we utilize appropriate one-on-one conversation, and then provide everything back in through the superintendent for Ms. Sibilio to be able to get out to everyone, that would be great. Make sense? So then I'd like to make a motion to I don't even need to make a motion. We'll just leave it on the table at this point.
Nope, I think we have to table it because it's an action item. There's just no discussion.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to table policy 1.300, bullying prevention.
Motion made and seconded to table. All in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I just want to
Yep.
write my information down. So I'd like to make a motion to approve policy number 2.223, which is the Student Advisory Committee.
Motion made and seconded to approve policy 2.223, Student Advisory Committee. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to make a motion to approve policy number 8.015, comfort care, do not resuscitate orders.
Motion made and seconded to approve policy 8.015. DBR? DNR.
That was a
Yeah.
DNR. Spelling error there.
Yep.
It's corrected. in-
DNR
yeah,
comfort care. And that was corrected in the policy.
Exactly.
Yep. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to make a motion to approve policy number 8.130, student discipline.
Sorry, just trying to find it here. There we go. Motion made and seconded to approve policy 8.130, student discipline. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to make a motion to approve policy number 8.140, student conduct.
Motion made and seconded to approve policy 8.140, student conduct. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to make a motion to approve policy number 8.145, prohibition of hazing.
Motion made and seconded to approve policy 8.145, prohibition of hazing. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to approve policy number 8.450, foster care education.
Motion made and seconded to approve policy 8.450, foster care education. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion to approve policy number 8.600, student dress code.
Motion made and seconded to approve policy 8.600, student dress code. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to make a motion to approve the homeless education policy. Just to bring to your attention, we are moving it, though, from Chapter 9, and it would be moved back into the students section, which would be Chapter 8. So,
I don't think this has the last couple of edits, so could we just check that?
The new one that we got in the,
Number, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so the one, you're approving the one that was emailed separately,
right.
not the one in the packet,
exactly,
right?
the one in the packet
Yeah.
did not have that revision. Thank you for calling out that one, but yes. So, and just to make sure, so I'll say it out loud.
yeah, can we read that into the record? Because
Exactly, let's read that.
Right.
Right. So what that was, would be, and its policy would be and why is it not coming up? Sorry, technical difficulties. So policy 8.350, and the change that had happened was if you went down under the second section where it's homeless liaison, the end of the second paragraph there would be an additional line that would say, the liaison shall ensure district staff receive professional development and other support on issues involving homeless students. Homeless students are defined as lacking a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, including but not limited to. And then it has points 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Okay, so.
Including striking the or similar reason from bullet point 1.
Exactly. So it would strike or similar reason under bullet point 1. And it would bring forth the language that would say including but not limited to. And that was what was emailed out separately to you all. Okay,
Thank
does
you.
that make sense to everybody
Yes.
now?
Much better, thank you.
You're
It's very
welcome.
vexing to me, the wordage before.
Went back to that legal jargon. So I'd like to make a motion to approve that amended version that was emailed out separately, which I just read what that revision was.
Real quick, does that include renumbering the ones after the 5 we struck out?
Yes, it has all of the rest of the changes that were within that packet.
Yep.
And there were also a number of places also that are within the packet where it was not just parent, it was parent or guardian. So that was added in throughout the whole document to make sure that or guardian was added. The language was removing the or similar reason on point 1, and then adding in the language that would be including but not limited to. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Just note that if you're taking out number 5,
It would
to
be a
renumber.
renumber. Yeah.
Just making sure. I'm Heidi's in spirit.
Yeah, no, please do. Because of the red line, I don't change any of the numbering until after, just so we don't, in case somebody doesn't want to change it. So, okay, so,
I think that's what I just said, but maybe I misspoke. I just said, suggesting renumbering, but I'm okay.
It will be in the final copy.
it will be done.
I just wondering if I'm speaking in tongues or I'm speaking English tonight, that's all.
Sometimes that's how I hear it.
Yeah, it's okay, Mrs. Ryan. I had school students for years who said that I spoke too fast, so.
So,
So
A motion.
now you can make the motion.
right, a motion to approve the amended version that was
New
emailed out
policy.
separately that I have just reviewed as well.
So, motion's been made and seconded to approve the newly numbered policy 8.350, homeless education. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Reports of school committee subcommittees. Have you had anything else to say, Mrs. Hennessy?
We're going to have another meeting. I don't know when. So, but thank you.
Any other subcommittees? No. What's going on with the warrant? Mrs. Matthews?
This being a special meeting, there was no warrant scheduled for today. We're all good.
Thank you for reminding me that this is a special meeting. Yes, they're always special. Members Forum. Mrs. Hennessy.
I just want to wish everyone a great start to the school year. And I wanted to say thank you to the administration on starting everything off on the right foot. It was great to be a part of a number of the meetings that happened last week and the team building stuff. And that was, a lot of fun. And it was team building. It was a lot of team building on that. But I also wanted to compliment you on the opening day It was nice to be able to be there and be a part of it. And I actually heard from a number of staff members that they actually really appreciated having some of that time to be able to get back to their buildings, to be able to get the rooms ready and be able to do some of the things on a building standpoint. And I thought it would be nice to hear, because sometimes when they're positive things, we don't always get to hear them. So take that, and good luck to everyone. Have a great first day. Yeah.
Just because I've been waiting a long time to push that button, I wanted to just say how thrilled I am to be sitting at this table, and grateful for this opportunity, and looking forward to this school year.
Excellent. Great to have you, Dr. Scazza. Anything else?
I'll just do what I usually do and say ditto, Mrs. Hennessy. We seem to travel in pairs these days.
Okay, entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Any further discussion?
Mr. Howard.
Early voting?
Yes, sir. Early voting.
All in favor of adjournment? Opposed? Carries. We are adjourned at 8:47. Thank you.
Thank you very much.